So Chris just got home from a work trip and thought it'd be a nice wife, make dinner, and have a nice quiet evening. But oh look, everyone is here because we get to meet with an expert tonight.
Married at First Sight, Season 16, Episode 14. All right, so we're getting down to the wire here, and by the end of this episode, they only have 2 weeks until decision day. So production sit in sex therapist Dr. Pia to chat with each of these couples to, well, I don't know what she was trying to do, because the last thing these couples need is the advice on how to amp up their sex life when they're barely tolerating each other. For this episode, to me, Kirsten and Shaq took center stage. Let's get into it. So Kirsten and Shaq continue to be on a roller coaster ride when it comes to their true feelings and communication, but both of them are starting to get on my nerves. So this Shaq situation and him having to go to Memphis for his job, I noticed when they were talking on FaceTime that Kirsten was being all bubbly, like, "Hi, honey, I miss you. I wish I was there with you." While Shaq was looking hella salty. I was like, why is he giving her so much stank face? But Kirsten didn't bat an eye and even called him back right after they hung up from the FaceTime and said, "I was trying to blow you a kiss, but you hung up on me. Mwah. Bye." Well, apparently Kirsten was supposed to go with them on this trip, but backed out at the last minute because she made plans on top of the Memphis plans and was in the streets. Well, that's according to Shaq. However, on Afterparty, Kirsten said when he brought up the work trip, it was a little all over the place, like it wasn't organized. He didn't have all the details. Plus, she basically invited herself to go. And when she mentioned that she wanted to go, he was like, "Oh yeah, you can come. You have friends down there, right?" So Shaq didn't even invite her to go, nor did he show interest when she said she wanted to go. And as for running the streets, as Shaq put it, she said she had an open house for one of her real estate listings, plus her dad wanted her to plan a birthday party for her grandmother. Now, I've been coming down on Kirsten most of this season, and rightfully so, because I'm not a fan of how she's carried herself in this relationship. But it sounds like she offered to go. He was indifferent. This listing situation came up. She didn't feel like he cared if she went with him or not, so she backed out. And he was like, "Whatever, do you, boo-boo." But he didn't mean that and never gave her an indication that he really wanted her there. So now I'm looking at Shaq sideways, like, dude, you're hanging in there with this woman because you're hoping she comes around, right? So now that she's showing interest, you act salty, like don't communicate and lie about her being in the streets when she was actually working. To me, in this situation, it feels like Shaq was playing games. Like maybe he was purposely playing his reaction down when she said she wanted to go with him to test her to see if she would really go. But since she didn't get a sense that he really wanted her there, she didn't think it was a big deal to cancel and do her own work thing, so he kind of played himself. I know that's some serious reading into that situation, but that's what I think happened. Now, when they met with Dr. Pia, Kirsten told her that things are going great because she's getting the quality time she asked for. So as far as she's concerned, their relationship's great. Okay, Mrs. All About Me, you're taking that happy wife, happy life saying a bit too far. Have you checked in with your husband to see if he's great too? Well, production did, and he said no. But child, when Dr. Pia asked Kirsten if she thinks Shaq is masculine, that pause was everything. She was like, he is. Okay, raise your hand if you believe that answer. That's what I thought. Clearly, she doesn't think that man is masculine. Well, until he picked up those moving boxes and used his little muscles. And I'm not mad at her for that example. Ladies, have you ever been struggling with a package and have a man take it from you and carry it away like it was a box filled with air? He's just like walking with it like it's nothing. Muscles just a popping with every step. Ooh, wait. And when he takes it, if he says, "I got you," girl, I'm like, "You got me. Thank you, daddy." There is just something so sexy about that. Don't act like it's just me and Kirsten. Y'all know what I'm talking about. And for some of you men out there, I just gave you a tip. Take that package from her. She's checking you out from behind. Don't ever doubt it. Anyway, Kirsten keeps comparing Shaq to her dad, who she describes as a tough man, good provider, and business owner. Now, it's not all that unusual for a woman to look for a man who's similar to her father, whether or not she's doing it consciously. But as some of you reminded me in the comments, her dad left the family when she was 8 years old. Not to mention he refused to go to her wedding because he didn't want to get a COVID test. Plus, he hasn't shown any interest in meeting her husband. Is this how you want Shaq to behave for real, for real? Now, she also said that she doesn't feel very safe and secure with Shaq. She thinks he might protect her, but she's not sure because she hasn't seen that side of him yet. Now, I'm surprised they didn't stage a robbery of someone snatching her purse to see what Shaq would do. I bet he would scream like, give him the purse, give him the purse. I tease about these things, but at the end of the day, her concerns are valid. Many women want a man who exudes masculinity and a protector vibe. However, given that she feels this way, her marriage doesn't sound great to me, as she put it. Now, Shaq was surprisingly quiet throughout this little chat, but to the confessional cam, he said that her questioning his masculinity and him always having to prove himself to her is taking a mental toll. Yeah, I totally get that, because when it comes to Kirsten, if it's not one thing, it's another. I don't like his bald head. He didn't ask to kiss me. He asked to kiss me, but I need to get to know him better. I know him better, but I'm a bad kisser. I kissed him, but I don't think he's masculine. He's a good dude, but he's not like my daddy. I mean, it never ends. So the experts left them a little sexy time goodie box for them to play with. After being called out for not being masculine, though, Shaq wasn't into it at all. He hid the ropes from her, made her stumble around with blinders on to try and find them. He put them in the washing machine. Like, first of all, why did he hide them? And why did he hide them in the washer? What's sexy about that? And if he's trying to prove he's masculine, shouldn't he have hid him in his toolbox? Anyway, so he took the ropes from her and tied her up, but it looked like a 7-year-old wrapped those ropes around her. If she would have sneezed, they would have fallen to the floor. Sir, this wasn't a very masculine rope tie-up situation, if you know what I'm saying. So after he had the ropes on her, he said something like, "Do you have control?" "No, I don't." "Sometimes you gotta give me control." So she put on her little nightie, got all blindfolded, went dumpster diving in the washer for the ropes. You haphazardly tie her up, all so you can fuss at her about control? I mean, the least you could have done is put more baritone in your voice when you said it. "Baby, sometimes you gotta give me control." You know what I'm saying? So in the end, she was trying to be all cute while being all up in his face with the feathers they gave them. And he said, "Get out of my face." So Shaq was definitely in his feelings about the Memphis trip and was acting out rather than being upfront about it. Now on Afterparty, she said the rest of that night was dreadful because Shaq continued to ask her why she didn't go with him to Memphis. Regardless of everything that happened in this episode, though, I still believe Shaq really likes Kirsten. Otherwise, he wouldn't have cared about Memphis. If this was Jasmine and Orgy, aka Airris, do you think if Jasmine couldn't go, Orgy would give a damn? No. So I believe Shaq cares, but he's giving passive-aggressive energy, which Kirsten is oblivious to because she thought things were going great. But I believe Kirsten is used to guys chasing her down, pretty girl syndrome. So the fact that Shaq was indifferent about her going to Memphis, not aggressively pursuing her physically, and isn't tripping over himself to buy her a house, she's feeling like he's not being assertive and masculine enough. Now, Chuck Norris, aka Clint, aka Mr. Swag, and Gina's meeting with Dr. Pia felt like watching an old married couple who's been together for years but gave up on sex like a decade ago. Since they are not having sex with each other, Dr. Pia asked, how do you fulfill your sexual desires? Chuck said, "I slept with one of the producers." No, just kidding. He didn't say that. They've both been pleasuring themselves. Dr. Pia trying to talk them into being more intimate with each other was like everyone was in on this secret but her. Hello, they are not interested in each other. Talking about how they pleasure themselves, since that arouse them, music that will get them in the mood for sex. Can we give her the transcripts of the previous 13 episodes, please? Or at least the honeymoon? Or better yet, read the room, girl. It was funny though when Gina was talking about how she normally dates guys who have a certain swag in the way they dress, then said Chuck didn't really have swag. She was just as surprised that he thought he had swag as much as he was surprised that she thought she was an athlete. Hilarious. Watching them talk after Dr. Pia left was entertaining too. They clearly have a good friendship and have mutually agreed to finish out the show, even though it's going to be a hell no on decision day. The exercise the experts gave them was called Just the Tip. I'll leave that title to your imagination. But if you were a teenage girl and ever made out with a guy, you've probably heard that phrase. Anyway, they went through their little box and rubbed each other with brushes, massagers, and feathers. It felt so forced and like they were doing it strictly for the cameras. They totally could have cut that scene. But during that conversation, Gina joked about him getting a swag haircut. And guess what? They didn't mention it on the show, but he got one. I thought she would be the one to give it to him, but it looks like they went to a barber shop. His haircut on Afterparty looked the best I've ever seen him look, including on his wedding day. Jasmine and Airris, aka Orgy. I don't know why, but Jasmine started this episode by saying she's concerned but hopeful. Hopeful for what? Why on earth do you want any man who doesn't want you, let alone someone like Orgy? So Jasmine told Dr. Pia that he friend-zoned her on the honeymoon. Knowing this, I don't know why she's going through all these changes to get this man to be anything more than just an acquaintance. So Orgy said one night he and Jasmine were kicking it right, and he was asking her a bunch of questions to get to know her, and she wasn't being receptive by diving in and engaging with him. She said it felt like he was asking questions just to be asking them, but didn't really care about her answers, so she wasn't into it. When Dr. Pia asked Orgy how that made him feel, Jasmine calling him out like that, he said he loved it. Honestly, I believe he said that because she's finally giving him some personality, like some spice. Maybe in his world, even a tinge of dominatrix, because as we all know, all conversations lead back to the sheets for Mr. Orgy. I believe Jasmine is a nice and kind person, but she probably hasn't been bringing much personality to the table. Not that Orgy has been giving us Kevin Hart vibes by any stretch of the imagination either. So apparently Orgy talked to Jasmine's sister and told her that the only reason he clapped when he saw Jasmine on their wedding day is because Pastor Cal basically told him to keep a poker face if he's not attracted to her. Why on earth did he need to say this out loud? Orgy, you've already gut punched this woman by repeating over and over again that you're not attracted to her. Now you gotta let her know that your initial positive reaction towards her was fake too? Dang it, man, Jasmine can't catch a break with you. Nicole and Chris. Okay, so they tape these couples about 40 hours a week. Why in the land of Taylor Swift and Beyonce did they show them installing a bidet and trying it out for what felt like 20 minutes? I was like, are you kidding me? Of all the things they've done and talked about that week, they felt like this was what America needed to see? And they couldn't just leave it at installing the bidet. No, they had to show us that they both tried it out and let the water squirt all the way up their booty hole. And what's even worse? I watched it, every second of it, and I can never unsee that. Anyway, Nicole seemed to get a lot out of their visit with Dr. Pia. She's realizing that she has more issues to deal with than she thought. For better or for worse, the focus these days seems to be on Nicole's issues. When they got their sex chest, first of all, I thought the chest itself was very pretty and unique, but they looked through it like a couple of nerds. Massage candle. I'm afraid I would use it too soon and burn you. Whip. Just no. Warming lube. That just sounds like a rash waiting to happen. Okay, Gertrude and Barney, live a little, won't you? Nicole said she'd rather work on fixing her mental issues rather than their sex life because it's good as is, but girl, you've got a long road to go. There's nothing wrong with enjoying the ride along the way. I'm just saying. All in all, Chris seems unfazed by all of the issues Nicole needs to work through, and he appears to be willing to help her get through them. Afterwards, I hope he works on his too, because he has just as much of a dark past as she does. Later, they had a little group outing where the guys got together and hit baseballs while the ladies went to some type of drink mixology class. Watching the guys hit the balls, I was impressed because they were allegedly coming at them at 60 miles an hour. Well, everyone did good except Chuck Norris. Poor thing, he had to swing like 7 times before he finally hit one. Child, he only hit one more ball than I did, and I wasn't even there. After both groups did their little play date assignment, they gathered around to talk about what we already heard them say to Dr. Pia. However, Shaq rated his marriage a 7 or 8. I was surprised that he gave it such a high score, but it's like I said earlier, no matter his complaints or stank attitude towards Kirsten, he really likes her. Meanwhile, Jasmine broke down because she's been sweeping things under the rug and not having conversations she knows they need to have because she's afraid of the answers. Girl, that's called denial. You already know the answers, but you don't want to hear them out loud. She said after they meet with the experts every time, he's always like, I'm going to be more intentional. I'm going to do this, going to do that. But there's never any change. And at this point, she's at a breaking point. So if he's making all of these promises, he's been leading her on, which explains why she's had a hard time letting go of the marriage. Whether it's his intention or not, he's giving her false hope. I keep wondering, what is she holding on to? But now I kind of see it. He's feeding her empty promises and she keeps buying into them. Well, until now, I guess, or I hope. Well, they only have 2 weeks left in this process. Hopefully she sees that on decision day, he plans on throwing this marriage in the trash, going back into them streets and hitting up the nearest freak of the week he can find. Okay, so this show is getting really close to the finish line, and instead of rooting for love and happily ever afters, I'm hoping that all of the remaining couples say no on decision day, except for Nicole and Chris. But being that I'm not rooting for happy endings though, I'm gonna need a little more drama and less toilet seat action out of these folks. Otherwise, these failed love stories without any drama is like watching the Hallmark Channel. Everything is bland with the same ending. Well, that's all I got for now. Thanks for hanging out with me, and I'll see you in my next video.